The scream was the only thing that was real. It cut through the recycled air of the cabin, a noise, thin and sharp, drilling into the temples of every passenger on the flight from New York to Los Angeles. It was a 5-hour flight, and we were maybe 45 minutes in. The sound was coming from my daughter, my Sophia. I bounced her on my knee, my arms aching with the specialized exhaustion only a mother knows. She was not hungry. She was not wet. Her ears probably hurt from the altitude, or maybe she just sensed my own despair. Babies are smart like that. They know when you are about to shatter. "Shh, baby, shh," I whispered, my voice raw. I tried to sing the little song about the bus, the one that usually made her giggle. The sound caught in my dry throat. I could feel the eyes, 100 pairs of them, or maybe it just felt that way. We were in coach, the cheap seats, the seats for people like me. Rachel Martinez, 25 years old and running on fumes, with a faded sweatshirt and exactly $63 in my checking account. The woman across the aisle, the one with the expensive-looking blonde hair and the sharp white suit, shot me a look of pure poison. She had put her noise-canceling headphones on, but I knew she could still hear the wail. She sighed, loud and theatrical, and turned pointedly toward the window. To my left, a man in a business suit audibly clicked his pen, over and over. Click, click, and click. A rhythm of irritation set to my daughter's misery. Tears of my own started to burn. I was failing. I was failing at this. Just like my sister Carmen always said I would. Carmen, who was waiting in California, ready to get married, ready to look down her nose at me and my fatherless child. I had scraped together every last cent from my 2 jobs at the diner just for this plane ticket, just to prove I could do it. And here I was, proving her right. I was the mess she always saw. I stood up, holding Sophia tight against my chest. Her little body was rigid, her face a mask of furious red. I started to pace the narrow aisle, or at least the 2 feet of space I had before I hit the beverage cart. "Ma'am," the flight attendant said. Her smile was plastic, stretched tight. "You really need to return to your seat. We are still ascending." "She will not stop," I pleaded, the words thick. "I'm just trying to calm her down." "It is policy," the attendant said, her eyes already scanning the next row. I was a problem to be managed. Defeated. I sank back into my middle seat. The pressure in the cabin was building, and the pressure in my chest was worse. I closed my eyes for just a second, a desperate prayer on my lips. "Please, please, Sophia, just for 10 minutes. Just let me breathe." The wailing only got louder, more frantic. She was feeding on my stress. I was a walking disaster. I did not notice him at first. I had barely registered the man in the aisle seat of my row when I first sat down. He had been there before me, and he had not moved, not a muscle. While the rest of the cabin fidgeted and glared, he had been completely still. I had seen him out of the corner of my eye. He was dressed entirely in black, a suit, but not like the businessman next to me. This suit looked like it was worth more than my apartment. It was tailored perfectly to a frame that was big, solid, and radiated a kind of energy that made the air around him seem colder. He had been reading a book, an actual, physical book, not a tablet, but now, the book was closed on his lap. He was watching me. I met his eyes by accident. It was like touching ice. They were not blue, not brown, but a gray so pale it was almost silver. They were cold, assessing, and utterly unbothered by the noise. He was not annoyed. He was not angry. He seemed interested, like a scientist watching an experiment. He looked strong. His jaw was sharp, covered in a very light shadow of a beard. His hair was dark, cut short and severe. He was handsome, I suppose, in the way a panther is handsome, dangerous. I looked away immediately, my skin flushing. The judgment from the blonde woman was bad, but this man's quiet observation was terrifying. It felt like he could see everything, the cheap fabric of my jeans, the exhaustion deep in my bones, the fact that I was completely, utterly alone. Sophia took a breath and let out a scream so high-pitched that the businessman next to me actually flinched. I began to cry, silent, hot tears. I wiped them away angrily. I could not break. Not here. Then he moved. He did not just shift. He turned his entire body toward me. The motion was fluid, controlled. The man in the seat next to me instinctively shrank back to give him room, even though the man had not encroached on his space. He leaned in just slightly. He smelled like expensive soap and something sharp, like cedar. His voice was deep. It was quiet, but it cut through the noise of the engine and my daughter's cries. There was an accent I could not place, maybe Russian or something Eastern European. "May I help you soothe the baby for a moment?" I froze. My entire body went stiff. I stared at him. His face was blank. It was not an offer of kindness. It was a statement, a transaction. What I whispered. "The baby," he said, his silver eyes flicking from me to Sophia. "She is distressed. May I hold her?" I should have said no. 1,000 alarm bells were ringing in my head. You do not hand your child to a stranger. You do not hand your child to a man who looks like he breaks things for a living. His hands were large, resting on his knee. I saw a heavy silver ring on his pinky finger. No wedding band. But I was so tired. I was so broken down by the glares and the whispers, and my daughter was in pain. Sophia, as if sensing the shift in gravity, suddenly stopped screaming. She was breathing in ragged, hiccuping sobs, but the wail had ceased. She was staring at him, her big brown eyes wide. He did not smile at her. He just watched her. I do not know," I stammered. He did not wait for a better answer. He simply held out his hands. They were steady, clean. Numbly, like I was in a dream, I found myself shifting Sophia. I moved her tiny, trembling body from my shoulder and into his grasp. The second she settled against his chest, a strange thing happened. Sophia let out a long, shuddering sigh. Her entire body, which had been rigid as a board, went completely limp. She turned her head, burrowed her face into the expensive black wool of his suit jacket, and her eyes drifted closed. Just like that, she was asleep. The silence that fell over the cabin was deafening. It was heavier than the noise had been. I could feel the blonde woman staring. I could feel the businessman staring. The man in black adjusted Sophia in his arms, holding her with a confidence that stunned me. He held her like he had held 1,000 babies before, yet he looked like he had never seen one in his life. He shifted her so she was comfortable, her head resting just over his heart. He looked back down at his book, picked it up, and began to read, one-handed. As if this were the most normal thing in the world, as if he did not just perform a miracle. I sat there, my arms empty and aching. My body was thrumming with adrenaline. I should have been relieved. I was relieved, but I was also terrified. The plane leveled off. The seatbelt sign pinged off. The flight attendant started preparing the beverage cart. The world resumed. I watched him. He did not look at me. He just read his book. His large hand splayed possessively on my daughter's back, rising and falling with her tiny breaths. Who was this man? He was not just a businessman, and he was not just a passenger. There was an aura of power around him so thick I could taste it, like static electricity. Why was he here? In Coach A, man dressed like him, with that kind of bearing, should have been in first class. He should have been on a private jet. Why was he on my flight, sitting next to me? And why, when he offered to help, did it not feel like a kindness? It felt like a command. It felt like an acquisition. I sat there for a full hour, watching my daughter sleep on the chest of a complete stranger, a man dressed in black, with eyes like a winter storm, a man who had silenced her screams with a single touch. I did not know it then. I could not have known. I thought he was just a bizarre, intimidating stranger. I had no idea that my life, and Sophia's life, had just been altered forever. I had no idea that this man, Alexei Petrov, was a billionaire. I had no idea he was a monster in the New York underworld. All I knew was that my baby was asleep on his shoulder. and I had no idea what would happen when she woke up. Or, for that matter, what he would do. I stared at the man. He had not looked up from his book. My arms felt strange, light and useless. Sophia was still deeply asleep against his chest, her little hand curled into the black fabric of his expensive suit. I should have been grateful. A part of me was a desperate, aching gratitude that made my throat tight, but another part of me, the part that had learned to survive, was screaming. This was not normal. Nothing about this man was. His stillness was like a predator's. His suit, the heavy silver watch on his wrist, they cost more than I made in a year, maybe 2 years. I am Rachel Martinez. I am 25 years old. I live in a walk-up on the 4th floor in a part of New York that tourists never see. The paint peels in my apartment, and the radiator either screams like a banshee or stays deathly cold. I am a mother, and I am completely, suffocatingly alone. This trip, this flight to Los Angeles, was supposed to be, what a break. A victory, it felt like a surrender. I have 2 jobs, both of them are at the same diner. By day, I am a waitress, balancing plates of eggs and coffee, smiling until my cheeks ache. My smile is my best tool. It gets me tips. It stops men from being too friendly. By night, 3 times a week, I go to the back. I wash the dishes, the steam, the smell of old food, the grease. It clings to my hair, my skin. But it pays. It barely pays. It pays for diapers. It pays for the formula that Sophia needs because my body was too stressed, too tired to produce enough milk. It pays the rent for our tiny apartment, usually late. I live in a world of numbers that never add up. My bank account, the one I had checked right before boarding, held exactly $63.18. This plane ticket had cost almost $400. $400 I had scraped together for 6 months, skipping meals, walking the 2 miles to the diner instead of taking the subway, collecting quarters and dimes in an old pickle jar. I was not always this tired. Before Sophia, I was just young. I was a different kind of poor, the kind where you still had energy to dream. I was taking classes at a community college, thinking maybe I could be a dental assistant. It seemed clean. It seemed quiet. Then came Marco. He had a nice smile and drove a car that was only mostly rust. He said all the things I wanted to hear. He told me I was beautiful. He told me he loved me. He said we would have a future. The future stopped the day I showed him the positive pregnancy test. I can still see his face. He looked at me. His easy smile just gone, vanished. He told me I was trying to trap him. He said it was not his baby. He was gone by the next morning. His phone was disconnected. I never saw him again. I told my sister, Carmen, first. I had to. Our mother was long gone, and our father was, well, he was mostly a ghost in his own life, floating between a bar stool and a lumpy couch. Carmen was older. She had escaped. She worked as a receptionist for a big law firm in Los Angeles. She had a fiancé, a man who sold expensive real estate. Carmen was the success. I was the failure. I remember the phone call. I was standing in the alley behind the diner, the smell of garbage thick in the humid August air. I am pregnant, I told her. There was a long silence. Not a shocked silence, a cold silence. Rachel, she finally said, her voice sharp, clean like cut glass. Do not be stupid. You know what you have to do. You cannot afford a baby. You cannot even afford your electric bill last month. I'm keeping her, I whispered. You are an idiot, Dama, Carmen snapped. You are ruining your life, just like Mama did. You want to be just like her, fine, but do not come crying to me when you have nothing. She had hung up. We'd not spoken much since then, just short, brittle conversations. But then, 6 months ago, the invitation came. It was heavy, the color of cream. It was embossed. Carmen was getting married. I expect you to be there, she wrote on the bottom in her perfect, spiky handwriting. No excuses. It was not an invitation. It was a summons. It was a test. She wanted to see me fail. She wanted me to call and say I could not afford it. That is why I saved the $400. That is why I took the extra dishwashing shifts, scrubbing pots until my hands cracked and bled. I would not give her the satisfaction. I would go to her wedding. I would show her my daughter, my beautiful Sophia, and I would show her that I was not ruined. I was surviving. But sitting here, on this plane, I felt ruined. I was flying across the country to see a sister who despised me. I was broke. I was exhausted, and my daughter, the one person in the world I loved, the one good thing I had ever done, was sleeping on the chest of a man who looked like he could kill someone with his bare hands. I looked at him again. His eyes were still on his book. He turned a page. The movement was slow, deliberate, economical. Sophia stirred, making a little sighing noise in her sleep. The man's hand moved on her back. He rubbed a slow, gentle circle. He did not look up from his page. He just did it, a natural, paternal motion. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. This was my life, a series of bad decisions and worse luck. I had fought so hard to be independent, to prove I did not need anyone. And here I was, trapped at 30,000 feet, indebted to a stranger. I could not relax. I could not sleep. My body was rigid with tension, a coiled spring. I was so worried about money, worried about seeing Carmen, worried about her rich friends looking at my clothes, which were worn, and my shoes, which were falling apart. And now, I was worried about this man, this dark, quiet man who had stolen my daughter's cries and replaced them with a silence that felt louder and far more dangerous. The silence in the cabin was a physical thing. It pressed in on me, heavier than the screaming had been. Sophia was completely limp against his chest, her breathing deep and even. She was gone, utterly asleep. I sat there, my hands clasped so tightly in my lap that my knuckles were white. My arms were empty. For the past 6 months, they had been full. Now, they felt useless. I could feel the other passengers. Their relief was a wave, but it was mixed with a burning curiosity. The blonde woman across the aisle was openly staring, her eyes flicking between me, the man, and the sleeping baby. She looked baffled, as if he had just made a rabbit disappear. I had to say something. The silence was stretching, growing awkward. My voice was barely a whisper. "Thank you." He did not look up from his book. He simply turned a page. The paper made a soft, crisp sound. I swallowed, my throat dry. I felt a desperate need to explain, to fill the quiet. "I am so sorry about all that. I do not know what got into her. She's usually not this fussy. I fed her right before we boarded. I changed her. I think maybe the pressure. It must be hurting her ears." I was babbling. I knew I was babbling. He finished his paragraph. Then, slowly, he lifted his head. His silver eyes met mine. They were not cold. Exactly. Not anymore. They were just still. Incredibly still. "You were panicking," he said. His voice was low, that strange, deep accent coding the words. It was not a question. It was a statement. I blinked. "What?" "You were stressed. You were afraid of what they—" He made a tiny, almost imperceptible gesture with his chin toward the rest of the cabin. "Were thinking." The baby sensed it. So she panicked too. I had no answer. It was the absolute, unvarnished truth. He had read me in an instant. He saw the flush on my cheeks, the way I had flinched when the businessman clicked his pen. He had seen my failure. The admission made me feel transparent, stripped bare. "Oh," I said, looking down at my hands. He looked back at his book. The conversation, apparently, was over. We sat like that for maybe 20 minutes. The beverage cart started its slow journey down the aisle. I watched the flight attendant, her movements practiced and efficient. She had been the one to tell me to sit down. Her smile was back, professionally bright. She reached our row. "Anything to drink?" "Ma'am," she asked me. Her voice was polite but clipped. She was talking to the woman with the screaming baby. Just water, please. No ice." She handed me the plastic cup. Then she turned to him. The shift was immediate. Her posture changed. Her smile became genuine. almost deferential. "And for you, sir, anything I can get for you. Coffee, a soda." "Coffee," he said, not looking up. "Black, no sugar." "Right away, sir." She practically tripped over herself pouring it. She handed him the steaming cup, and he took it with his free hand. His movements were economical, fluid. He held the hot cup in one hand, my sleeping daughter in the crook of his other arm, and his book open on his lap. It seemed impossible, yet he did it effortlessly. He took a sip of the coffee. He did not flinch, though it must have been scalding. The attendant beamed at him, then glanced at Sophia. "She's just precious," she cooed. "It is amazing how she quieted down for you. You must have the magic touch." He just nodded, his eyes on his page. The flight attendant lingered for a moment, waiting for more, but when he offered nothing, she pushed her card away. The small interaction confirmed everything I already sensed. This man was not like me. He was not like anyone on this plane. People deferred to him. Even in a cheap coach seat, he commanded respect. He radiated an authority that had nothing to do with a uniform and everything to do with who he was. I sipped my water, my hand shaking slightly. The silence returned, but now it felt different. It was charged. I had to know, why are you sitting back here? The question was out before I could stop it. He looked up. He seemed to consider whether to answer. "Pardon me. You seem like..." I fumbled, gesturing vaguely at his suit, his watch. "You do not seem like a coach passenger." A flicker of something passed through his eyes. It was not offense. It might have been amusement, but it was so brief I could not be sure. "I like to watch people," he said. "Oh, like for a living?" "Sometimes," he said. He closed his book, keeping his finger in the place. He turned his body, just slightly, toward me. It was the first time he had given me his full attention. It felt like a high wattage bulb being turned on. "And you are not flying for pleasure." Again, a statement, not a question. "Is it that obvious?" A small, bitter laugh escaped me. "It is," he said. He was not being cruel. He was being factual. I am going to see my sister in Los Angeles. She's getting married. This is a bad thing. It is complicated. My sister, Carmen, and she is very successful. Her fiancé is rich. Their house is... I have only seen pictures, but it is huge. They are all... I stopped. I was telling this stranger, this terrifying, competent stranger, my pathetic life story. They are all what he prompted. They are not like me. And this makes you stressed, he said, connecting it back to his first observation. Yes, I admitted. They expect me to be better, not a single mother who works at a diner. The man, this complete stranger, stared at me for a long time. He was not looking at me with pity. That I could have handled. Pity was familiar. He was looking at me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. It was analytical. Then you have already lost, he said quietly. I flinched. What? You are walking into this wedding, worried about what they will think of you. You are apologizing before you even arrive. They will smell it on you. Your sister, her new husband. They will see your fear, and it will confirm everything they want to believe about you. My blood ran cold. His words were brutal, but they rang with a terrible, clear truth. So what am I supposed to do? That I whispered, my voice trembling. I cannot just show up in a limousine? I cannot pretend to be something I am not? No, he said, his voice dropping even lower. You do not pretend. You do not have to. You have her. He nodded at Sophia, sleeping peacefully on his chest. Is she not enough? I stared at him. You are her mother. You are her entire world. You feed her. You protect her. You are flying across the country for a family that does not respect you. This is not weakness. This is strength. But you wear it like it is a disease. I did not know what to say. My throat felt thick with tears, but not the sad, desperate tears from before. These were different. You walk in there, he continued, his voice insistent, and you do not apologize. You do not make excuses. You do not care what they think. You are there. You kept your promise. That is all. Control is not about what is in your bank account. It is about what is in your head. It is knowing you do not require their permission to exist. He stopped, as if surprised by his own speech. He looked away, back toward the window. They are small people. If they judge you for this, do not make yourself small for them. I sat there, stunned into silence. The advice was harder than steel, and yet it made me feel strong. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of something other than exhaustion. I looked at his closed book. What were you reading? He lifted it. The title was in a language I did not recognize. The letters were different, Cyrillic. Poetry, he said. Poetry that did not fit. It is precise. There are rules, a structure. You find the truth inside the structure. I always thought poetry was soft. The strongest things are, he said. He glanced at Sophia. She is soft, but she stopped this entire cabin with her lungs. She has power. You just have to learn how to use yours. He opened his book again. The conversation was, once again, over. I looked at him. Really looked at him. His patience was not kindness. It was a form of control. His coldness was not cruelty. It was a lack of pretense. He said what he meant. He was not confusing. He was just honest. I did not know his name. I did not know who he was. I had no idea that he was Alexei Petrov, a man whose name made other men in New York tremble. I did not know he was a billionaire. A man who moved in a world of shadows and power I could not even imagine. I just knew that this man, with his strange advice and his calm, capable hands, had somehow given me back a piece of myself. I leaned my head back against the seat, and for the first time in what felt like a year, my shoulders relaxed. I was still terrified, but it was a new kind of fear. It was not the fear of falling. It was the fear of what might happen, now that someone or something had stopped my descent. Sophia slept for almost 3 hours, 3 solid, uninterrupted hours. It was a miracle, a dark, strange miracle performed by the man beside me. I spent the time in a state of suspended animation, too afraid to move, too tense to sleep. I just watched the clouds pass by the tiny window. I watched the other passengers. The businessman next to me kept sneaking glances at the man, his earlier irritation replaced by a nervous, almost fawning respect. The blonde woman across the aisle was no longer hostile. She looked intrigued. She was watching him with a kind of speculative interest that made my stomach clench. I was aware of him, of every tiny movement, the way he turned his page, the way his broad chest rose and fell beneath my daughter, the way his large, ringed hand rested on her back, a gesture of absolute, casual possession. We did not speak again for a long time. The silence was his domain, and I was just a visitor. About 45 minutes before we were due to land, Sophia stirred. She let out a little sigh, her eyelashes fluttering. She nuzzled against his suit, her tiny mouth rooting around. My body tensed. She is probably hungry. The man looked down. His silver eyes rested on her, and for a second the hard, analytical light in them softened. He shifted her, and her eyes opened. She was not crying. She blinked, looking up at his strange, severe face. She was calm, curious. He looked at me. She is fine. I should take her, I said, my arms lifting automatically. I need to feed her. He held my gaze for a moment longer. It felt like he was weighing a decision. Then, with that same fluid, controlled grace, he transferred her back to me. Her warmth flooded my arms. It was a relief so profound it almost hurt. I clutched her to me, burying my face in her soft, baby-smell hair. She was safe. She was back. Thank you, I whispered again, my voice thick. I do not know your name. He watched me for a second, his expression unreadable. Alexei. Just that, Alexei. It suited him. It sounded old and hard and foreign. I am Rachel. I offered. and this is Sophia." He just nodded. He picked his book back up, as if the transaction was complete. He had held her. He had given her back. We were done. I busied myself with Sophia, getting her bottle from the diaper bag. My hands were shaking. I was acutely aware of him, of his presence. He had held my child, spoken to me with a brutal honesty that no one had ever used before, and now he was a stranger again. The plane began its descent. The captain's voice crackled over the speaker, telling us about the weather in Los Angeles. Sunny, 78 degrees, a different world. My stomach filled with a familiar, cold dread. Carmen, the wedding, the judgment. Alexi's words came back to me. "Do not make yourself small for them." I held Sophia tighter and tried to channel an ounce of his cold, unbothered confidence. The plane touched the tarmac with a bump. We taxied for what felt like forever. The cabin silent now with the anticipation of arrival. When the plane finally docked and the seatbelt sign switched off, the cabin erupted. Everyone stood up at once, pulling bags from the overhead compartments, jostling for position in the aisle. It was the usual chaos. Except for him. Alexei did not move. He sat perfectly still, his book in his hand, waiting. He showed no impatience. The businessman next to me practically climbed over his own seat to get out, mumbling, Excuse me. Alexei just waited. I stood up, juggling Sophia on my hip, pulling my worn, overstuffed diaper bag from under the seat in front of me. It was heavy. I slung it over my shoulder, the strap digging into my skin. Finally, the aisle in front of him was clear. He stood up. My breath caught. Sitting down, he was big. Standing up, he was a mountain. He was well over 6 feet, with shoulders that seemed to block out the light. He moved into the aisle, and the few people still lingering near us seemed to shrink, instinctively moving out of his way. He looked back at me, still fumbling with my bag and my baby. "Go," he said. "What?" "Go, in front of me." "Oh, no, you were first. It is fine." He did not argue. He just stared at me. It was not a polite request. It was an order, numbly. I stepped into the aisle in front of him. I could feel his presence directly behind me, a wall of heat and power. I felt protected. It was the strangest, most unnerving feeling I had ever had. We moved slowly down the aisle. As we reached the front of the plane, I saw the flight attendants. The one who had given him the coffee was standing there, her smile dazzling. "Goodbye, sir," she said, her voice warm. "I hope you had a pleasant flight." "It was adequate," he replied. He did not even look at her. His eyes were focused on the jet bridge. And that is when I saw them. Standing just inside the terminal, at the mouth of the jet bridge, were 2 men. They were dressed in the same expensive, dark suits as Alexei. They were both huge, with thick necks and faces that looked like they had been carved from stone. They were not smiling. Their eyes were scanning every single passenger who walked off. When they saw Alexei, they both straightened. A subtle, sharp motion, one of them, a man with dark hair, spoke into his wrist. As Alexei stepped off the plane, they moved to flank him, one in front, one behind. But he had stopped. He was waiting for me. I hurried, Sophia bouncing on my hip, and stepped out into the terminal. The 2 men looked at me. Their eyes were cold, assessing. They were just like his. They looked at me, then at Sophia, and then back to Alexei. Alexei said something to them in that language I did not recognize. It was fast and low and sounded like a command. The man in front nodded. He looked at me. "This way, please." I froze. "What I have to go to baggage claim." "This way," the man repeated. He was not polite. I looked at Alexei. He was already walking, flanked by the other man. He did not look back. He just expected me to follow. My heart was hammering. This was wrong. This was insane. I should have run. I should have screamed. I should have melted back into the crowd of travelers and gone to find the shuttle bus sign. But I did not. His words echoed in my head. Control. I followed him. The terminal at LAX was bright and loud. People were rushing everywhere, rolling suitcases, yelling into phones. But as I walked behind Alexei, A bubble of silence seemed to move with us. People got out of our way. They saw the two men. They saw Alexei, and they parted like the sea. I saw other men who were trying not to be seen. One was standing by a newsstand, his eyes hidden by sunglasses, but his head was turned directly toward us. Another was talking on a payphone, a device I had not seen used in years, but he was not talking. He was watching. I saw him speak into his sleeve, just as the bodyguard had. They were not looking at me. They were looking at Alexei, and they looked dangerous. They looked like the kind of men who carried guns, the kind of men who broke legs. My entire body went cold. This was not a rich businessman. This was not a poet. This was something else, something terrifying. We did not go to baggage claim. We went to a set of escalators marked for departures. But we went down, we bypassed the normal taxi stands and shuttle buses. We walked toward the private car pickup. And there, at the curb, was a car. It was a massive black sport utility vehicle. It was polished to a mirror shine. The windows so dark they looked like black holes. Another two men stood by the car. 4 men, 4 bodyguards. One of them opened the rear door as we approached. Alexei stopped and turned to me. He looked at me, and then his eyes dropped to Sophia. She was awake, her head on my shoulder, looking at everything with wide, silent eyes. "My car is this way," he said. I cannot. I whispered, "My sister, I have to get a shuttle to her house." "I will take you," he said. It was not an offer. "I do not even have my suitcase," I said, my voice shaking. The first man, the one who had spoken to me, said, "Your baggage tag, ma'am." Numbly, I pointed to the little sticker on my boarding pass, which I was still clutching. He took it from my hand, glanced at the tag number, and nodded to one of the other men. "Get the bag, the brown one. It is falling apart." My face burned with shame. "Get in, Rachel," Alexei said. His voice was soft, but it held a new edge, an edge of impatience. I looked around. The men who had been watching us from the terminal, they were here too. They were across the street by the parking garage, trying to look casual. But they were watching. They were watching him, and now they were watching me. I realized, with a sickening lurch, that I was trapped. If I ran, what would happen? Would they think I was with him? Would these men, these strangers, follow me? And Alexei, he was not just offering a ride. He was making a claim. He had plans. He had plans that involved me. This was not a random act of kindness on a plane. This was something else. I looked at his face. His expression was calm. He was waiting. He knew I would get in. He knew I had no money, no power, and nowhere else to go. He knew that my sister was not waiting for me. He had seen my entire pathetic life in a single glance. Slowly, my legs trembling so hard I could barely stand, I walked toward the open door. I ducked my head and slid onto the black leather seat. The car smelled like his suit, rich, clean, and cold. Alexei got in beside me. The car was huge. There was a vast space between us. He was not crowding me, but his presence filled the entire vehicle. The door shut with a heavy, final thunk. It did not sound like a car door. It sounded like the door to a vault. One of the men got in the passenger seat. Another got in the driver's seat. Alexei looked at me. "Where are you going?" I told him Carmen's address, my voice a reedy whisper. He repeated the address to the driver. The driver just nodded. The car pulled away from the curb, merging silently into the chaotic Los Angeles traffic. I looked out the dark-tinted window. I could not see the men who had been watching us. We were sealed inside this black, moving fortress. I turned to Alexei. My heart was a cold stone in my chest. "Who are you?" He looked at me, his silver eyes catching the light as we passed under an overpass. "I am a man who gets what he wants, Rachel. And you want something from me. I want to ensure you and your daughter are safe," he said. "Safe? Safe from what?" He looked away from me, out his own window. "You are asking the wrong questions. You should be asking if you can escape your old life, if you are strong enough to start a new one." I stared at him. his words from the plane coming back to me. This was not advice. It was a test. I realized the truth. He was not just rich. He was not just powerful, the way the men watched him, the way his own men protected him. He was a target. He lived in a world of violence. He was a mafioso, a boss, a man from the underworld. And I, Rachel Martinez, a broke single mother, was sitting in his armored car, holding my baby. I had not escaped my old life. I had just been pulled into his. And I had a terrible, sinking feeling that Alexei Petrov never, ever let go of anything he considered his... The heavy door clicked, and a profound silence enveloped us. It was not just quiet, it was the absence of sound, as if the entire city of Los Angeles had been muted. The leather seats were cool against my skin. Sophia, sensing the shift, whimpered in my arms. "It is okay, baby," I whispered, my voice sounding impossibly loud in the enclosed space. Alexei said nothing. He was looking out his window, his face a mask of stone. The man in the passenger seat, the one with the cold eyes, spoke into a microphone on his cuff. His voice was too low for me to understand. The driver, a man with a thick neck and hands that dwarfed the steering wheel, pulled the massive vehicle into traffic. His movements were smooth, impossibly so for such a large truck. We did not weave or rush, we simply moved, and other cars seemed to instinctively give us space. My heart was a hummingbird in my chest. Safe from what? I asked again, my voice stronger this time. Alexei finally turned his head. His silver eyes pinned me to the seat. From men who believe that what is mine should be theirs. And I am yours. The words were absurd. I had met him barely 4 hours ago. "You are with me," he corrected. But it did not feel like a correction. It felt like a clarification. "That makes you a target. It is a simple equation." I clutched Sophia. She was my only anchor. "I do not want to be a target. I do not even know you. Please, just take me to my sister's house. I will get out. I will not tell anyone I saw you. I will not. Wart." "It is too late for that," he said. His voice was not cruel, just final. "They saw you. They saw you with me. They saw me with you. They saw the baby." "Who are they?" "My competitors." Competitors in what poetry? The sarcasm was weak, laced with terror. He almost smiled. It was just a tiny, sharp lift at the corner of his mouth. "In business, my business is, complicated. It requires loyalty. My competitors lack it, so they try to take what I have built. They are not polite men. Rachel." My mind was racing. The men at the airport, the watchers. This was a war. I had stumbled off a plane and straight into the middle of a war. "You should have left me there. You should have just let me go." "I could not," he said. "Why?" I demanded, my voice rising. Before he could answer, it happened. It was not a loud noise at first. It was a series of hard, metallic thwacks against the side of the truck, like someone was hitting us with a hammer. Sophia jumped, her eyes flying open, and she let out an in-breath for a scream. The man in the passenger seat yelled, "Contact 3 o'clock!" The driver did not panic. He slammed his foot on the accelerator. The truck's engine, which had been a low rumble, roared to life like a dragon. We were thrown back against the leather. Then the world exploded. A car, a big black sedan, slammed into our side. The impact was deafening. The truck bucked, metal screaming against metal. I shrieked, curling my body around Sophia, who was now wailing, a high, terrified sound that mirrored my own. Another car appeared in front of us, braking hard, trying to box us in. "Get her down!" Alexei roared. It was not a voice I had heard before. It was a sound of pure command, a sound that shook the very air. He did not wait for me. He lunged across the space between us. He grabbed me by the shoulder, his grip like a steel trap, and shoved me down. He pushed my head toward my knees, his other arm coming over my back, shielding me and Sophia with his own body. I was crushed between him and the seat. My face pressed into the diaper bag. I could smell the leather, his clean scent, and something else, something sharp, gunpowder. The windows were not just glass, they were thick. A bullet struck the window beside my head, and it did not shatter, it cracked. A white spiderweb pattern appeared. The truck swerved violently. I could hear shouting. The driver was yelling in that other language. The man in the passenger seat was yelling back. "We are compromised, the engine is hit," the driver shouted in English. "I cannot hold it." We were slowing down. The other cars were pressing in. "Dmitri, the alley now," Alexei commanded. The truck mounted the curb, smashing through a row of newspaper boxes. We crashed into something hard. My teeth rattled. The vehicle came to a dead, sudden stop. The silence that followed lasted only a second. "Out, go, go," Alexei yelled. He pulled me up. His door was already open. The sounds of the city rushed in, but they were drowned out by more sounds. Loud cracks. Gunfire. "Stay behind me. Do not let go of the child," he ordered. He was already out of the truck, pulling me with him. He had a gun in his hand. It was black and heavy, and it looked like an extension of his arm. The driver, Dmitri, was out, firing back at the men who were spilling from the other cars. The passenger seat bodyguard was providing cover, shoving us toward a narrow, dark gap between two buildings. In move, Alexei pushed me. I stumbled, my legs like waters. Sophia was screaming, a raw, piercing sound. I was crying. I could not stop. We were in an alley. It smelled like garbage and urine. "Keep going." Alexei was right behind me, his body a shield. I could hear him firing the gun. The sound was a physical blow, a boom that echoed off the brick walls. I ran. I had never run so fast in my life. I was clumsy, weighted down by the diaper bag, by my daughter, by pure animal terror. We reached a rusty metal door. The other bodyguard was already there, kicking it. The lock splintered. He threw it open. In stairs. We plunged into darkness. It was a service corridor. It was black and close. Alexei shoved me toward the stairs. "Up, all the way up." We climbed. We ran up flight after flight of concrete stairs. My lungs were on fire. My legs were screaming. Sophia's cries were getting hoarse. Alexei was right behind me. I could hear his steady, heavy footsteps. He was not even breathing hard. Finally, we burst through a door onto a roof. The sun was blinding. The city was a distant roar. We were high up, surrounded by air conditioning units and vents. "Where are they?" I gasped, spinning around. "They will be here," Alexei said. He was scanning the rooftop, his gun still up. The other bodyguard, the one who had opened the door, was with us. The driver was not. Dmitri was not here. "Where is the driver?" I sobbed. Alexei did not look at me. He did his job. The finality of it hit me harder than the car crash. He did his job. He was gone. He was dead. For us. For this man. "Oh, God," I whispered, sinking against a vent. "Oh, my God, I'm going to be sick." "You cannot. Not now," Alexei said. His voice was hard, but he stepped in front of me. He put his free hand on my shoulder. "You must breathe. Rachel, breathe. For her." He was right. I forced the air into my lungs. I looked at Sophia. Her face was red, streaked with tears and snot. But she was alive. She was unharmed. "Why?" I whispered, looking up at his hard face. "Why did you not just leave me on the plane?" He looked down at me. The sounds of the city seemed to fade. The chaos, the gunfire, it all went away. It was just us, on a hot, bright roof. His silver eyes were not cold. They were burning. "'Cause the moment I saw you," he said, his voice low and rough, "I knew." "Knew what?" "When you were trying to calm her, you were exhausted. You were defeated. Everyone was looking at you with hatred, and you were still trying. You were still fighting. You were still a mother. You did not break." He moved his hand from my shoulder to my face. His thumb, calloused and rough, brushed a tear from my cheek. "I have been around people my entire life, Rachel, people who are strong on the outside, but inside they are nothing. They are hollow. You are the opposite. You think you are weak. You are the strongest person I have ever met." I stared at him. My breath caught in my throat. "I did not know what it was," he said. his eyes searching mine. "But when you handed her to me, when you trusted me with her, I knew I was not letting you go. I have loved you since you looked at me with those terrified, defiant eyes on that airplane." He loved me. The words did not make sense. This monster, this killer, this man who had just led us through a war zone was telling me he loved me. Before I could even process it, the bodyguard yelled, "Boss, they are on the roof!" Alexei did not hesitate. He spun, pushing me behind the large metal air conditioning unit. "Stay down. Do not move. No matter what you hear, do not move." The gunfire started again. It was closer, so much closer. I curled into a tight ball, my body covering Sophia. I pressed her face into my chest, trying to muffle the sound, trying to protect her. I heard shouting in English, and in that other language, I heard the thwack of bullets hitting the metal unit I was hiding behind. A man screamed. It was a short, sharp sound. I could not help it. I peeked around the edge. 2 men, the ones I'd seen at the airport, were on the roof. They were firing at Alexei and his bodyguard. The bodyguard went down. He clutched his leg, yelling in pain. Alexei was alone. He was crouched behind a vent, firing back. He was methodical, controlled. 1 shot, a pause, another shot. One of the men saw me. His eyes locked on mine. He grinned. He ignored Alexei. He started walking toward me. "No," I whispered. My blood turned to ice. He raised his gun, still walking, and he was pointing it at me, at Sophia. Alexei yelled, "No!" He fired, but the man ducked, still coming. I was frozen. This was it. I was going to die on a roof in Los Angeles, a city I had never even seen. The man was 10 feet away. My body moved. My mind was not in control. It was pure, raw instinct. I did not have a gun. I did not have a weapon. I only had my bag. As he raised his arm to aim, I stood up. I screamed, a sound of pure rage, and I swung the diaper bag. It was heavy. It was loaded with bottles, diapers, formula, my spare shoes. I swung it with all the strength I had. I did not aim. I just swung. The heavy bag connected with his arm. It hit his gun. The crack of the shot went wild, straight up into the blue sky. The man yelled, surprised. He was off balance. It was all Alexei needed. A single shot, loud, but final. The man looked surprised. He looked down at his chest. Then he just folded. He collapsed onto the rooftop. He did not move again. The other man, seeing his partner fall, turned and ran. He scrambled for the door. Alexei did not shoot him in the back. He let him go. Silence. The only sounds were my own ragged breathing, Sophia's hoarse cries, and the bodyguard groaning on the pavement. I was still standing, the diaper bag clutched in my white-knuckled hand. I was shaking so hard I could barely see. Alexei stood up slowly from behind the vent. His gun was still raised, but his eyes were on me. He walked toward me. He did not look at the man I had hit. He did not look at the man he had shot. He looked only at me. His face was unreadable. It was not angry. It was not happy. It was something else. Something profound. He stopped in front of me. He looked at the diaper bag. Then he looked at my face. "You are a warrior, Rachel Martinez," he said, his voice soft. He raised his hand and tucked a piece of my matted hair behind my ear. His touch was so gentle it undid me. I collapsed. My legs gave out. He caught me. He wrapped his free arm around me, pulling me and Sophia against his hard, solid chest. I buried my face in his suit jacket, the same one Sophia had slept on. It smelled like gunpowder now. "I have got you," he whispered into my hair. "I have got you. You are safe now." I was not safe. I knew that. I was in more danger than I had ever been in my life. But as I stood there, shaking in the arms of a killer, a mafia boss, a man who had just confessed his love for me, I had never felt more protected. My old life was gone. It had been blown up in a storm of bullets. This was my new life. And I was, terrifyingly, in his. I held on to him, my face pressed against his chest. I was shaking, a deep, bone-rattling tremor I could not control. I could smell the gunpowder on his suit, a sharp, acrid scent that would forever be mixed with the smell of cedar. Sophia was crying, a hoarse, weak wail. She was terrified. She was alive. Alexei held me for a moment, his arm a band of steel around me and my daughter. He was a solid, warm wall in a world that had just exploded. "We have to move," he said, his voice a low rumble in his chest. He let me go, but only enough to turn me toward the stairs. His hand was firm on my back, guiding me. "Boris," he said to the bodyguard, who was sitting up, his face pale and slick with sweat. He had tied a handkerchief around his thigh, but the blood was already soaking through it. "I am fine, boss," the man grunted, pushing himself up the wall. "You are not," Alexei said, "but you will be. Go, get to the rendezvous. Tell no one. Call the doctor." The bodyguard, Boris, nodded. He gave me a strange, appraising look. It was not hostile. It was respectful. He had seen me swing the diaper bag. He had seen me save myself. He limped to the stairwell door and disappeared inside. "Where's he going?" I whispered. "To a safe place. Where we are going," Alexei said. He picked up my diaper bag from where I had dropped it and slung it over his own broad shoulder. The sight of this huge, dangerous man, gun in one hand, diaper bag in the other, was so bizarre it made my head spin. But the other man, the driver, and Dmitri. Alexei's face hardened. Dmitri knew the risks. We do not leave our people behind, but we do not die for them when the fight is over. We honor them by surviving. Now, we must go. That man who ran, he will bring others. He did not take me to the stairs. He guided me to the other side of the roof, to a narrow, rickety-looking metal ladder that went down the side of the building, a fire escape. "You first," he said. "Hold her tight." I looked down. The alley was at least 5 stories below. My stomach turned. "I cannot... Yes, you can," he said. His voice was not kind. It was absolute. "You swung that bag. You can climb a ladder. I will be right behind you. I will not let you fall." My old self, the Rachel from this morning, would have cried. She would have pleaded, this new Rachel, the one covered in grime and the soot of a gunfight, just nodded. I turned, clutching Sophia to my chest. Her little heart was pounding against mine. I put one foot on the rusty rung. It held. I went down, one step at a time, my arms shaking, my legs trembling. Alexei was right above me. I could hear his steady breathing. I could feel the heat from his body. He was so close he was almost touching me. He was my shadow, a wall at my back. We reached the bottom. The alley was empty. It was quiet, except for the distant, fading sound of sirens. Someone had heard the gunshots. Alexei dropped to the ground beside me. He took my hand. His grip was warm and hard. "Run," he said. We ran. We ran through a maze of back alleys, our footsteps echoing off the concrete. We crossed a street, dodging cars, and plunged into another alley. I had no idea where we were. I just followed his pull. He was navigating the city's underbelly like he owned it. Maybe he did. Finally, we came to an underground parking garage. It was dim and smelled of gasoline. He led me to a different car. This one was not a massive truck. It was a sleek, dark gray sedan. It was the kind of car you did not notice, but that probably cost more than a house. He opened the back door. "Get in. Lie on the floor. Cover her." "What?" "Do it, Yingjian Rachel, now." I did not argue. I crawled into the back and huddled on the floor, curling my body around Sophia. Alexei got into the driver's seat. He started the car. It made almost no sound. We drove for what felt like an hour. I could not see anything. I just felt the turns, the stops, the starts. I listened to Sophia's breathing, which had finally evened out. She had cried herself to sleep. Finally, the car stopped. I heard the sound of a heavy gate rolling open. We drove for another moment on what felt like smooth gravel. The car stopped. Alexei's door opened. He opened my door. "We are here. You are safe." He helped me out. I was stiff, sore, and filthy. We were in a garage that was cleaner than any hospital I had ever seen. The floor was spotless. He led me through a door into a house. I stopped. I had seen pictures of places like this. Carmen's fiancé had shown them off, but this was different. It was a house, but it was a fortress. The windows were huge, floor-to-ceiling glass, but I just knew, they were the same kind of glass as the truck, bulletproof. The furniture was minimal, expensive, and beautiful. Everything was white, or gray, or black, like him. "This is one of my homes," he said, dropping the diaper bag by the door. "No one knows about this location, not even Boris. We will be safe here for a few days until I can clean up the mess." A mess? He called that firefight a mess. I need to clean her," I whispered, looking at Sophia. Her face was streaked with my tears and dirt. Alexei nodded. "This way." He led me up a floating staircase to a bedroom. It was bigger than my entire apartment. The bed was massive. And through a door, there was a bathroom. It was not a bathroom. It was a spa. It was all white marble, with a tub so big it looked like a swimming pool. "There are clothes in the closet," he said, gesturing. "They will not be your style, but they are clean. There should be things for the baby as well." I stared at him. Why are there baby things here? His expression did not change. I had them delivered when we were in the car. My mind reeled. While I was cowering on the floor, he was ordering diapers. "Take your time," he said. "Get clean. I will be downstairs. I have to make some calls." He left, pulling the door almost closed, leaving it open just a crack. A sign that I was not a prisoner, or a sign that he was always listening. I locked the door. I waited, listening. I heard nothing. I turned on the water in the massive sink and, using a cloth that was softer than any shirt I owned, I gently washed Sophia's face. She woke up, looked at me, and her lower lip trembled. "It is okay, my love," I whispered, my voice breaking. "It is okay. Mama is here. We are safe." I stripped off her dirty clothes and mine. I stepped into the shower, a massive glass box, holding her against my chest. The hot water was a shock. It stung my skin. I washed her. I washed myself. I watched the grime and the city and the gunpowder and the blood. Was it my blood, or the bodyguards swirl down the drain? I was washing away the woman who had gotten on the plane. I did not know who this new woman was. I stepped out and wrapped us both in towels that were thick and white and warm. I found the closet. It was full of women's clothes, silks, cashmeres, all in black and gray. They were not my style. They were not anyone's style. They were a uniform. But in a drawer, just as he said, were baby clothes, onesies, sleepers, diapers, formula, everything I needed. He had thought of everything. I dressed Sophia. I fed her. She drank the bottle, her eyes fixed on my face. She was so resilient. She was so strong. I found a robe for myself and put it on. I found a crib in the corner of the room, already set up. With a firm mattress and a soft white blanket, I laid Sophia down. She was asleep in seconds. I stood there, watching her, for a long time. This room was a palace. It was silent. It was safe. She was safe. But I knew, with a certainty that chilled me, that this safety was paid for in blood. It was bought by men like Dmitri. It was defended by men like Boris. It was commanded by a man like Alexei. I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was wet, tangled. My face was pale. My eyes were huge, dark, and filled with a terror I had never known before. I realized I was in love with him. The thought was not a soft, gentle thing. It was a violent impact, just like the car crash. It knocked the wind out of me. I loved him. I loved his stillness on the plane. I loved the way he had held my daughter. I loved the brutal, honest advice he had given me. I loved the way he had looked at me on that roof, not with pity, but with recognition. He saw me. He called me a warrior. Marco, my ex, had told me I was beautiful. Alexei had told me I was strong. I loved the man who had just killed someone. I loved the man who had a driver die for him. I loved a monster. What did that make me? I heard his footsteps on the stairs. He was coming up. My heart did not pound with fear. It pounded with something else. Anticipation. I had to choose. I knew it. This was the moment. My old life was gone. My sister, her wedding. It felt like a story from another lifetime. It had no meaning. My world was now this house, this man, this violence. Could I accept this? Could I raise my daughter in this beautiful, bloody cage? Could I love a man whose hands were stained? Or should I run, try to take Sophia and disappear? I knew the answer. Even as I asked the question, I could not run. He would find me. And even if he did not, his enemies would. The men who had seen me, I was linked to him now, forever. And the deeper, more terrifying truth, I did not want to run. I was 25 years old, and I had been fighting for scraps my entire life. I was so tired of being poor. I was tired of being invisible. I was tired of being weak. With him, I was not weak. With him, I was a warrior. The question was not, could I accept this world? The question was, could I survive it? And could I protect my daughter inside of it? The doorknob turned. He was not asking permission. He was entering. I looked at my daughter, sleeping soundly in her safe, white crib. Yes, I thought, for her, I can. Alexei stepped into the room. He had taken off his suit jacket. He was just in a white shirt. It was stark against his dark hair, his dark, powerful frame. He looked normal. Almost. He looked at me and then at Sophia. She is safe. He said, it was a promise. I met his gaze. I did not look away. I did not apologize. Yes, I said, she is. I had made my choice. He stood in the doorway, a shadow against the soft light of the hall. His shirt was a stark white, emphasizing the breadth of his shoulders, the power in his frame. He'd been making calls. I had heard the low, sharp murmur of his voice, that foreign, hard language, for the past hour. He had been rearranging his world, cleaning up his mess, a mess that had cost at least one man his life. He looked at me, standing in the middle of the room in a borrowed silk robe. Then his eyes moved to the crib, to Sophia, sleeping peacefully. Her tiny fist curled by her cheek. The sight of her, safe in this marble palace, made my choice feel real. It felt right. You should eat, he said. His voice was soft, devoid of the command it had held on the roof. I just nodded. I was beyond hunger. I was running on a kind of adrenaline I had never known, a mixture of terror and a strange, dark excitement. He stepped fully into the room. He did not move toward me. He walked to the crib. He stood over my daughter, looking down at her. He was so large, so dark. He seemed to swallow her in his shadow. I tensed, a primal urge to snatch her away rising in my throat. He must have sensed it. He did not reach in. He just watched her. She is beautiful, he said, so quietly I almost did not hear him. She looks like you, but she has your fight. She has my, I stopped. You mean from the plane? Her crying? No, he said. He turned to look at me. His silver eyes were intense, serious. I mean from the roof. She did not make a sound. When you were hiding, when you swung that bag, she was quiet. She knew you were protecting her. She is smart. She is a survivor, like her mother. My heart stuttered. He was not just praising me. He was praising my child. He was seeing her the way he had seen me. He walked toward me. I did not back away. I held my ground, his words from the plane echoing in my head. Do not make yourself small for them. He stopped just in front of me. He was so close I could feel the heat radiating from his body. He raised his hand, the one that had held a gun, the one with the heavy silver ring. He touched my face, his fingers tracing the line of my jaw. His touch was rough, calloused, but it was unbelievably gentle. You are shaking, he whispered. You killed a man," I whispered. "Yes," he said. There was no apology, no hesitation. He was going to kill you. He was going to kill her. It was not a choice. It was a necessity. My world has necessities, Rachel. This is what you must understand. "Is this my world now?" I asked. His eyes searched mine. "You can leave. I will not stop you." I flinched. The thought of leaving, of walking out that door into the chaos. "I will give you money," he continued, as if reading my mind, "enough that you will never have to work in a diner again. You and Sophia will be safe. I will have my men watch you, from a distance. No one will ever harm you." It was a generous offer. It was freedom. It was the sensible choice. "But I will never see you again, thou art," he finished, "and you will never see me, and you will always be looking over your shoulder, wondering if I missed one. One man, one enemy." He was laying the cards on the table. "A life of comfortable fear. Or I prompted. "Or you stay," he said. His hand moved from my jaw to the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in my damp hair. His grip was firm, possessive. "You stay with me. You will never be poor again. You will never be weak again. You will have everything, and I will protect you. I will burn the world to the ground before I let anyone touch you or her again." "And what do I have to do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You have to be mine," he said. "You have to accept my world, all of it, the darkness, the necessities. You have to stand beside me, not behind me." I looked into his eyes. I saw the killer. I saw the monster, and I saw the man who had held my daughter with a tenderness that cracked my heart open. I saw the man who had called me a warrior. "I am already yours," I whispered. The words changed him. The stillness in his eyes broke, replaced by a fire, a hunger that made me weak. He did not kiss me. Not then. He just pulled me against him, his arm wrapping around my waist, and held me. He buried his face in my hair. I felt his body shudder. "Alexei," I said, my voice muffled by his shirt. "That is my name," he rumbled. We stayed in that house for 3 days. 3 days of existing in a bubble. He made calls. He met with men in dark suits who came and went like ghosts. Men who brought him bags and computers, and who spoke in low, respectful tones. Boris, the bodyguard, returned on the 2nd day, his leg bandaged, walking with a cane. He gave me a curt nod. Alexei spent his nights with me. He would come to the room late, after his work was done. He would just sit and watch me. He asked me about my life, about the diner, about Marco. He listened with that unnerving, total focus. And he would hold Sophia. He would pace the room with her when she was fussy, his large, hard body a comfort to her. He would feed her a bottle, his enormous hands dwarfing the plastic. He was a natural. It was the most terrifying, most seductive thing I had ever seen. On the 3rd day, he came in. He was wearing a fresh suit. "It is done," and he said, "Done. The men who attacked us, the organization they belong to, it is no longer a problem. Dmitri has been avenged." I did not ask what that meant. I did not want to know. I just saw the finality in his eyes, the cold, clear resolution. The threat was gone. "What about my sister?" I asked, the thought surfacing like a memory from a dream. Her wedding. "The wedding was yesterday," he said. My heart sank. "Oh, she must hate me." "I sent a gift," he said, "a very large one. I explained that you and Sophia were detained, that you were ill." She was not angry. She was very, very understanding. He had bought my sister's forgiveness just like that. "It is time to go," he said, "not to her, to our home." He did not take me to another safe house. He took me to a palace. It was a sprawling estate in the hills, high above the city, with gates a mile high and guards who were armed with more than just handguns. It was beautiful. It was a fortress. This was my new life. It was not easy. The first few months were a blur. I learned the rules. I learned not to ask questions about where he went at night. I learned to smile at the men with cold eyes who guarded my home. I learned to wear the expensive, beautiful clothes he bought for me. And I learned to love him. It was not a soft, easy love. It was a love forged in gunfire and fear. It was a love built on his absolute, suffocating protection. He was tender with me. He was passionate in a way that left me breathless. He would touch me like I was something precious, something he had earned. And he adored Sophia. She was his princessa, his little princess. He gave her everything. He was the father she had never had, a terrifying, powerful, doting father. I was not Rachel Martinez from the diner anymore. I was Alexi's woman. I was strong, I was feared, I was protected. It was not a perfect life, but it was our life. 6 months after the plane, he took me to a party, a charity ball. It was my first time in his world, his real world, the world of billionaires and politicians, and the other shadows who ran the city. I was nervous. I was wearing a black dress that cost more than my college tuition. Diamonds, real ones, were cold on my throat. "You look beautiful," Alexi said, his hand possessive on the small of my back. "Remember, you do not need their permission." I nodded, and for the first time, I believed it. We walked in, and the room went quiet. He was the king, and I was his queen. We were sipping champagne when a woman approached. She was older, maybe in her late 50s, but elegant in a way that spoke of old money and hard-won grace. She was beautiful. And she was looking at me. She smiled at Alexei. "Alexei, my dear boy, you are looking well." "Elena," he said, and he smiled. It was a real, warm smile, a smile I had only ever seen him give to Sophia. "It is good to see you. You are as lovely as ever." "You flatterer," she said, her voice warm, with a faint accent I could not place. Then she turned to me. Her eyes, a deep, warm brown, widened. She stared. Her hand came up to her mouth. "Alexei," she whispered, her eyes locked on mine. "Elena," he said, his hand tightening on my back, "I would like you to meet Rachel. Rachel, this is Elena Rostova, a very old, very dear friend of my family." The woman. Elena took a step closer. Tears welled in her eyes. "Rachel Martinez," she whispered. My blood ran cold. How do you know my last name?" "Rachel," she said, her voice breaking. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers tracing the air, as if afraid to touch me. "Oh, my baby, my child, it is you. It is really you." I stared at her. My mind could not make the connection. And then it did. A vague memory, a face from a photograph I had not seen in 20 years, a song, hummed in this same soft accent. "Mama?" The word was a breath, a question, a plea. She was sobbing now, nodding. "Yes, my love, it is me. It is your mother." I was frozen. My mother. The mother who had abandoned me and Carmen when I was 5. The mother I had been told was gone, who had vanished. I spun, my head reeling, and looked at Alexei. His face was calm, but his eyes were watching me with that same intense focus he had on the plane. "You knew," I whispered. "You knew." "I have been looking for her," he said, his voice quiet. "For me alone. Since that day on the plane, Rachel, you told me about your family, about your sister, about your mother who was gone. I wanted to give you back what you had lost." I looked at him, the mafia boss, the killer, the monster, the man who had taken my life and remade it. He had not just given me wealth. He had not just given me protection. He had searched for the one piece of my past I thought was gone forever. He had found my mother. He had known her. She was a friend of his family. She was part of his world. My life was not just a gilded cage. It was a puzzle. And he was giving me the pieces. I looked at my mother, who was crying my name. I looked at Alexei, who was watching me with a love so fierce it terrified me. My new life, our new life, was not perfect. It was dangerous. It was complicated, but it was real. And I knew as I took my mother's hand that it was only just beginning. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I have to ask, where are you listening from? I love hearing from you all. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, I would be so grateful if you would subscribe to the channel, Mafia Boss Stories, and give this video a like. And please, hit that hype button. It really helps this story get heard by more people, and it means the world to me.